High school football season is here, and Sports on Tap has you covered all season long with in-depth coverage and analysis. You won't want to miss our special football shows each Monday of the high school season from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Catch recaps of all the games, interviews with local players and coaches, and hear if your team is playing in the game of the week. For the best high school football coverage, turn to Sports on Tap. Every 30 to 9 p.m. Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network.
And welcome to Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. It's our Ohio high school football coverage live from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. I'm Rob Trump. We have Ed, Dick, Josh, Jeffy. Sean Duffy is on assignment in Washington, D.C.
I thought he was in Kentucky.
Kentucky?
Washington, same thing.
He's somewhere.
Our geography is top-notch as
it
normal,
is.
as
I thought he said Washington,
here.
D.C., but I could be wrong.
These are some really sweet headphones. My God.
Yeah, you're using Sean's this week.
Yeah, I can tell because they're huge.
Pretty comfy, huh?
Yeah, they're not bad. He's got a huge dome, so I'm surprised I fit in these.
Oh, man. Well, Week 5 has ended, and, another exciting week. We were out in Avon to cover the Avon Eagles and the Westlake Demons, which we'll get to later to go over our game of the week and also tell you who our game of the week coming up ahead is later in the show. Mm-hmm. But first, we're going to talk about the Greater Cleveland Conference. Then we'll go over the Southwestern Conference and Suburban League. Right now, we're going to hand it over, though, to the man, the producer of the show.
The handwritten notes.
The handwritten
notes.
He is
a throwback.
It's working on the penmanship, my friends.
Before he covers the Greater Cleveland Conference, folks. He's Josh Jeffy.
Thanks, Rob. Before we get started, I think we need to kind of take a step back and say thoughts go out to the Euclid Panthers as Andre Jackson, a player for Euclid Jr., was injured in last Friday's game, ended up passing away, I believe, yesterday due to those injuries. So just a quick thoughts go out to his family first and foremost, his friends, and everyone associated with the Euclid Panther football team. And I guess everyone in high school football or plays high school or plays football in general, you never want to see those kind of things. Unfortunately, in a contact sport like that, those things do happen. Even when they do happen, though, it's not that easy to deal with, especially with a young fellow like that. So I just want to take a moment to say, thoughts go out to his family and friends for that tragedy. Moving on to Week 5. Tough transition is always a tough transition after something like that. Yeah. But we're going to start Menor at Shaker. This was a big one. Menor tried to get back on the winning track in the GCC. Shaker tried to continue the winning track. But this game was all Menor. Menor was up 34-0 at halftime. And basically all the big stats were put up in the first half of this game. Running back Isaiah Gullick, 13 rushing attempts for only 61 yards, but did have 4 touchdowns in the first half alone. Quarterback Tadas Tatarunas was 12 of 16 for 162 yards and a touchdown. Again, all in the first half. So pretty much this game was over at halftime. Again, 41-0. Menor improves to 2-3 on the season, 1-1 in the GCC. Shaker Heights drops to 3-2. They are 1-1 also in the conference. Menor will play host to Solon next week. Shaker will play host to Elyria. In both games are big GCC matchups. Our second game of the evening in Week 5 was Elyria as they played host to Brunswick, and they won 34-21. Elyria improves to 3-2, 1-1 in the conference. Brunswick drops to 1-4, 0-2 in the conference. Now, Elyria led 27-0 at the half. This was a very sloppy game. In total, both teams each had 5 fumbles. Elyria did lose 4 of them. Elyria lost 3 of them. Brunswick did lose 4 of them. You got to give credit, though, to Brunswick. Down 27-0 at half. Came back, got it to 27-14 towards the end of the third quarter. And this is a team that was without several starters due to various reasons, team rules violations. So they had some young guys step up. Some of the young guys, Jake Vidini, 2 touchdowns in the game. He had 20 rushing attempts for 72 yards and those 2 touchdowns.
Nice.
Another bright spot for the Blue Devils was Ethan Flanagan, 2 receptions for 71 yards. For Elyria, they're led by a dual-headed attack at the running back position. Tyrese Stevens and Chris Atkinson combined for 208 rushing yards. Dante Beckett, the quarterback for Elyria, also added 2 rushing touchdowns. But again, it's got to give credit to Brunswick. A lot of turmoil the past few weeks associated with that team. And Luke Beal had to gather his team, and they came out in that second half. I believe the first possession, and Ed, you can correct me. Were you there this weekend?
I was.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the first possession of the second half, Elyria turned the ball over, and Brunswick did get the ball and end up scoring on that drive. And then they added another touchdown late in the third quarter. Just, however, wasn't enough as Elyria powered through to a 34-21 victory. Up next for the Pioneers, they will travel to Shaker. Brunswick will play host to Medina in a big GCC, big rivalry game there. Speaking of the Medina Bees, they continue their winning ways. They remained undefeated this year, 5-0. 2-0 in the conference with a 42-23 victory over the Strongsville Mustangs. Strongsville does drop to 1-4 on the season overall, 0-2 in the conference. Now, big loss to Medina in this game. John Curtis broke his right wrist, the quarterback for Medina. He is most likely out for a long period of time. They still have Jimmy Daw, though. In this game, he had 200 yards, close to 200 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns. Medina, though, in the very beginning was led by Dylan Foltz. He opened the game with a 85-yard touchdown return on the opening kick. And then later on for the second score for the Bees, he added a 60-yard touchdown reception. For Strongsville, though, they did tie the game in the second quarter, 14-14, with a 60-yard punt return by Joe Gillette. However, Medina then went to the ground and pound with Jimmy Daw pretty much the rest of the game, leading to that 42-23 victory over Strongsville. Medina, as we mentioned, will travel to Brunswick. Strongsville will travel to Euclid this coming Friday, week 6. My spotlight game pitted the Solon Comets against the Euclid Panthers, and Solon came out with a 33-13 victory. Solon improves to impressive 4-1 on the season, 2-0 in the GCC. Euclid falls to 3-2. They are 1-1 in the GCC. Solon led this game 26-0 at halftime.
They're good.
Yeah, you have to give.
They're good.
You have to give credit to the Solon defense on this one. In this game, they kept Euclid quarterback, who we mentioned a lot, Noah Mitchell, to only 9 of 27 passing for 100 yards. Running back for the Panthers, Daquan Pruitt, did have 17 carries for 115 yards. For Solon, they were led on offense by Joe Bubonics, the quarterback, 15 of 28 for 212 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2 of those touchdowns went to running back Thomas Wilkes. He also added 63 yards on 26 carries. Next week, Solon will travel to Mentor. Euclid will play host to Strongsville. There was some standouts this week. The normals. Jimmy Daw, of course. In this one, Joe Bubonics was an MVP candidate, but I actually went with Isaiah Gullick for Mentor. In the first half alone, 61 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an impressive 41-0 victory over Shaker Heights. He's been kind of their workhorse this year, trying to keep that team afloat as they look to improve on their 2-3 record overall this season. Now, my spotlight game this week coming into week 6, it's got to be Solon at Mentor. Solon is playing some of the best football in the GCC next to Medina. Mentor trying to get a real read on this team this year. This is a real statement game for them. If to see where their season's going to go, pretty much if they lose this game, it could be tough for them moving forward. we mentioned last week, this week coming into, we're going to be looking at some of the Joe Itel rankings. And as far as the GCC goes, in Division 1, Region 1, top of the list in the GCC is Solon. They are 5th in the region. Euclid is tied for 7th. Menor is on the outside looking in. Remember, the top 8 teams do qualify, and these are just computer rankings according to Joe Itel. They are not considered official, but for the most part,
they are.
Yeah,
for the most part, we live by them.
Yeah, they are. Menor is on the outside looking in Region 1, and they are 2 and 3 at number 11. Moving on to Region 2, pits some GCC teams. The top GCC team is Medina. They are number 3 in Region 2. Elyria is number 6. And then Brunswick and Strongsville are looking on the outside in at 12 and 13. And I apologize, cannot forget about Shaker Heights. They are in Region 1, and they are tied for 12th with a 3-2 record. So things are getting mighty interesting here in the GCCs. We're getting knee-deep into it. Week 6, we are over the halfway point. So, guys, any quick thoughts on the GCC?
Well, I think your spotlight game with Menor and Solon is going to really be interesting because Menor lost to Euclid and Solon dominated Euclid. So I think, I was surprised, though, that Euclid got dominated that bad by Solon because, Solon is a really good team, but I think Euclid's a really good team. Beating a Menor team, I think it was on the road, too, that they beat Menor. So, that was an impressive win, or even if it was at home. Either way, beating a Menor team is an impressive win. But I was a little surprised, and that shows you how good Solon is. So that Menor-Solon game is going to be a fun one. And Medina, they lose their starting quarterback, but, they just have weapons from all over. Jimmy Dawes, obviously, is the center of that offense, and they keep putting up a lot of points and continue winning now, 5-0 on the year. And as for Brunswick, like you said, they lose a lot of players on that team, but it's really easy when you're down at halftime. What were they down, 27-0 at halftime?
Yeah.
To just, pretty much throw in the towel, give up, and say, let's come back next week and regroup. But, they didn't give up. They tried to come back. They scored, 14 points in the third quarter, which put them right back in the game. So, they didn't give up there. Elyria, a much-needed win there. They definitely needed that win after a few tough losses. But overall, the GCC is competitive and a lot of good teams, really, from top to bottom.
Absolutely. It's one of the few conferences that has nothing but Division I teams in it. Everyone's a Division I team, and that makes every win in this conference huge because you get the most points for beating a Division I team, and you have 7 chances to do it just in your own conference. So even if you look at Brunswick, if we go into that vacuum, they're still number 12 in the region.
Was it the top 8?
It's a top 8. If Brunswick, if the Devils can string together a couple of wins starting this week with Medina, you never know what can happen.
That would be huge.
Well, it's the same thing. It could go for
that would
Strongsville,
be a ton of
exactly,
points.
and that could go for Shaker too. They are. What did I say? They were 12th. They're tied for 12th in Region 1. It may be a little tougher than them with the higher power in Region 1. I think we can all agree that for Northeastern Ohio, Region 1 is probably the more powerful of the regions in Division 1. But still, Shaker Heights is playing pretty decent football this year. And if they can string together a couple more victories, they could be right into it too. So,
absolutely.
Ed said it perfectly. GCC is a big-time conference in Northeast Ohio, and even the state of Ohio, because they're all Division I. And each week, all the coaches said, you got to come out and play. And that's what these teams are doing.
And I think that's the difference now with a lot of these teams. You can have multiple losses. I think when we played, you lose 1 or 2 games, and it felt like you're pretty much done. Where now I think there's a little bit more competitiveness with a lot of these teams. They're playing tougher teams, and 1 or 2 losses, and you're still going to be in it.
Yeah, you're probably going to end up being on the road in the first round, but
yeah,
as long as you get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter. You just need to get in and see what happens from there, and you see what kind of draw you get. And some of these teams we're really going to start looking at the playoff picture a little bit more in the coming weeks than we are today.
Yep, absolutely. Well, right now what we're going to do is step away, take a short break, and when we come back, We're going to talk about the Southwestern Conference and a lot of good games there. Some surprises, some not surprised by some of the outcomes, but we'll go all in depth in the Southwestern Conference when we come back. We're Sports on Tap for the NEO Sports Insiders Network. It's our Ohio High School football coverage. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.